message. And now, broadcasting live from our near-Earth hub studio, we bring you this NBN special report.
It's Daily Cast time. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We've got three wonderful guests to talk about a nice set of 4 scoops today, coming from 3 different sources. I hope you all are enjoying scoop season. We're on day 3, excuse me, of community scoops, and we got, I think, a nice little batch today. But we also have 3 fantastic guests on who probably most people will have heard of in some capacity. I'm going to have them each introduce themselves, talk a little about how they got into Netrunner, what they've been doing in Netrunner lately, and also what their favorite icebreaker is. So, Alex, do you want to go up first and introduce yourself to the stream? I'm realizing I took a gamble
He's still
because
out.
yeah, Alex stepped away to get some tea. So we'll probably come back to him. And Cephalopod Wizard, we'll go to you next.
Hello, it's me, Cephalopod Wizard. I work on the rules team for this game, and right now there's just a lot of rules work to be done right about now, and then there's a convention this weekend in Seattle. So at SakuraCon, you can go learn to play Netrunner if that's something you still need. And there's a very cool playmats for sale. And my favorite icebreaker, it's a horrible thing to say, but I feel like it's Pressure Spike.
Ooh.
Because finally, Shaper, if you just want to break barriers and you cannot be bothered to jump through any hoops, you can just break barriers for some money. And it feels like this is the first, like this has just not been available for a long time, but now it is.
Yeah, I guess that is a nice thing that this does. I always look at Pressure Spike and I'm like, oh, that 4 install cost is so rough, but 2 for 3 is not terrible, and 1 for 1 is pretty good. And then you've also got that 2 for 9 once per run. So that does seem pretty nice. I also just when did you first pick up Netrunner?
I started playing a little bit before the Kitara cycle started to be printed. So,
Okay.
gosh, when was that? Is that
Like
2017 or 18?
Yeah, I think 2017, but I'm not 100% on that. All right, and Alex, it looks like you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yep.
All right, so Alex, I'll have you introduce yourself and also tell us what your favorite icebreaker is.
Hey, I'm Alex. I go by Arzon from Vancouver. Been also playing Netrunner for about 7 years since 2017. I think me and Cephalopod must have started playing right around at the same time. And I think my favorite icebreaker, at least this very moment, might be Umbrella.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about
get into
that.
reasons for that today, yes.
Yeah, we'll be talking about Umbrella, I think, a little bit more very shortly. So, yeah, and because you didn't mention it in your own intro, I'm just going to mention you're the reigning world champion, and someone who I can confidently say is a much better Arsana player than me. So, you got those good accolades.
I do remember when I managed to make the top cut in Boston against you. I'm like, I finally made it. I'm like a good Arsana player. I beat Jeff with it once.
Oh man, that was a good game.
Yeah.
All right, and Toron, last but most certainly not least, do you want to introduce yourself? And
Hey, I'm Toron. I've been playing Netrunner competitively for about a year, just over. And I only started playing it all a bit before that. I'm a big Eternal player. I really enjoy Eternal, especially recently. I just wrapped up winning the Eternal Super League, which was one of the more competitive Eternal tournaments recently. My favorite icebreaker would probably be Mayfly. It's a really simple, it's really interesting and effective. It's also very expensive. It's not an easy total AI solution just because it's not viable to continually sink credits into it. But especially in Eternal, when there's a lot of scary ice, and I can pull out those Mayflies with Cabinessa Wu's ability, it allows for a lot of really interesting lines and synergizes well with a lot of the options in Eternal.
Very nice. All right. Well, I think that's thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm excited to hear all of the different takes we have on today's spoilers, and we've got a nice set. I think we're gonna go in set order. So I believe up first is it's Chromataphores. Now I noticed, Justin, you've got a profile picture is the art from Chromataphores. So we'll go to you first, but before we do that, I should read the text of this card. Chromataphores is a 1-cost, 1 MU program subtype Trojan. Install only on a piece of ice. The host ice gains Barrier, Code Gate, and Sentry, and is a 2-influence Shaper card, illustrated by Adam S. Doyle. And the flavor text is: the net operates almost as much on dream logic as it does digital logic. If you believe something to be true, it often is. The Encyclopedia Silica. So, Cephalopod Wizard, do you want to open us up on our new Squid Boy?
Yeah. I think I would just really like this direction that Netrunner is taking. I think we're looking at easily one of the best cards in Netrunner. Maybe even the top 3. It's a hard choice among the top 3. But I think it's just such a beautiful card. And I think that when you play it, your opponents are going to look at this and realize they are playing the game wrong for not putting this card in their decks. And I just see this as the future of Netrunner. Don't know what the text does.
Yeah, are you much of a Shaper player? I'm kind of curious.
Oh yes, sometimes. So more seriously, it seems like perhaps this will bring Umbrella into a place where I can, not make the top cut, but just put it in the deck and then not take the deck apart immediately.
Yeah.
I do know the obvious point of reference to this card is comparing it to the old FFG card, Egret.
Yeah, and this is different in, I think, 2 different ways that are, probably both relevant. The first one being the install cost is obviously 1 credit cheaper. And then Egret, I feel like, because Egret was initially printed, I feel like it was a pretty early FFG card. And most FFG cards that are printed early on, or almost most of them, I would say, have the condition to install only on a rezzed piece of ice. Whereas Chromataphores just says install on a piece of ice, so the ice doesn't have to be rezzed. Which I think is, I'll maybe let someone else talk about why they think that matters, and why that might be a significant buff for this card.
One thing I do notice, it does say install only on a piece of ice, not on an installed piece of ice. So what if we were to somehow get a piece of ice hosted on another card, but not installed? Could you install the Chromataphores onto that?
You cannot, because installed is the play area.
Yes, unfortunately.
Wait, but isn't there what's
Also,
that one?
Awakening Center.
Thank you.
The most
I was
cursed card in history.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if there's a Bioroid on an Awakening Center, could we host Chromataphores
we don't need to
on
answer
that
this
ice?
question.
No, this is why we have the Rules Wizard on, to answer these questions.
I've actually done my reps with Awakening Center, not played it, but answered questions about it. And no, I don't think you can. I think that this essentially gets treated like you're accessed an ambush ice out of HQ. But interestingly, things on Awakening Center are in the remote for some reason, so you can imp them.
Oh, that's so cursed. I guess that also means you couldn't spree a Trojan onto Awakening Center ice because it's not protecting the attack server.
I think it not being installed may still get you there, but it's a good thing that's not standard.
Yeah, and because it's not protecting the attack server, you definitely can't spree, because that's a condition on spree. Man, wow! I always forget how cursed Awakening Center is.
It's so cursed.
I'm glad we're not going to spend the rest of this episode referencing it. But yeah, we talked about
bring it up again.
Yeah. So Arzon, you were talking a little bit about Umbrella before, and I figured that this is probably the card that we were both excited about to maybe combine this with.
Yeah, because normally you look at Umbrella, the fact that when you use it to break a Corp Ice, they get to draw a card. Like usually that's a downside for you as a runner. You don't want to give the corp free card draw. But there's this weird, very niche Arasana archetype, or technically it doesn't be Arasana, but you do Umbrella with Conduit, and you just keep going over and over again into R&D with it. And them drawing cards just lets you see more fresh cards, actually like in your favor. It's kind of a similar thing to using like Medium with Equivocation back in the day. Which every single time you're hitting R&D, you're tending to see more fresh cards. And that was the only deck I ever saw that played Egret back in last standard. And so this is like a straight upgrade for that deck, other than the fact that we've lost Cubon. It's like that deck also loved the fact that you could just tunnel an R&D for so long that you'd be funding it almost entirely with Cubon money.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how I'm like, oh man, Umbrella is like, it's technically, if you can get a Trojan down, like one of the most efficient breakers you could possibly have because it's base 5 and 2 for 3. But I'm still like, but I really, if I'm not breaking it for free, like why am I going through all these hoops? And
understated it a little bit. Just how important it is that you can install it on res dice. Egret was essentially entirely a response card. You needed the corp to do something so that I can do something in response. Well, Chromataphores is proactive. I can put this on an ice that I'm afraid of, meaning that even if it's a sentry, it won't kill me. I can put this when I can't find my barrier breaker. If you run 3 of these and other Trojan support, you might be able to just cut out your barrier breaker or your sentry breaker. It opens up a lot of lines that Egret failed to. And the 1 credit discount makes it very easy to risk it in a way that Egret, you can't. Like, for Egret to be good, I need to have the ice rezzed, meaning I probably face checked it and took the subs. I then need to have some sort of discount on the break to make it worth it. And then I need to do something else on top of that. It's a lot of asks in a way that Chromataphores absolutely does not ask that of you. You can throw it down, you can mitigate risk, you can take shots at servers that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. It just opens up a lot of lines, especially for Arasana.
Yeah, I think the other cool thing is that it's like compared to Pelagi, which was pull up I see here. It gives you the types before the encounter, so it lets you trigger on encounter effects that care about the subtype that you couldn't do with Pelagi. So if you want to do things like bypass cards with after image, that's a possibility with this card that wasn't with a lot of the other painting cards.
Yeah, that's actually.
I also want to shout out.
Oh, go ahead.
I also want to shout out that this is also kind of indirectly buffed by the existence of Game Dragon, because when you're looking to use some wonder rig that only uses Umbrella, the static 5 strength on Umbrella and Banner is a huge limitation because, of course, Bran exists and other high strength ice exists. But you might be able to get over some of those thresholds by Game Dragoning your Umbrella.
I think also if you look at rotation now for Umbrella, there are literally only 2 code gates above 5 strength, and they're both 6 strength. So Umbrella plus Game Dragon gets you through every single code gate in the format. And the 2 right now are like Ballantow and Piranhas, which are both actually not the worst to get through if you have to in some alternate fashion. And with the outfit gone, those aren't going to see too much play, I don't think, either.
Yeah,
take a moment to touch on Eternal. I am very excited about this card out of Cabinessa Wu. She can draw the card for free, install it for free, allowing us to attack any server really easily, and then immediately after getting through the ice, we can trash it with World Tree so we have that efficient trigger. It lets us hit a lot more servers with very little fear of hitting the really scary ice like Fairchild 3 or DNA Tracker. And that just opens up a lot of lines, whereas before we might have tried to get extra value by installing Kyubon. This lets us, instead of going for value, go for safety, which is really important for a high swing format.
Yeah, the safety is much better than the 2 credits. I went to go on this shouting out Persephone time, which, it's funny because it's this is like one of those cases where it's like, oh yeah, Chromataphores being 1 credit cheaper and being able to be installed on face downs like does start to make these sort of sillier combos work more nicely. Where it's like, oh yeah, I could like Banner and Persephone and then get with a Chromataphores on it and get all of those triggers. And it's like, yes, you could do that with an egret before, but it was like, because of
so much work.
Yeah, because the Toron said like you either need a way to get the Chromataphores in at like instant paid ability speed, or you need to face tank everything the first time through, and you're also paying 1 fewer credit on that like 9 turning a 10 credit combo into a 9 credit combo like does actually start to make a difference.
So here's another cursed rules question that probably has a nice simple answer, but the reason why it's simple might be tricky. If the card is unresed, does it still have the Sentry type? Since Chromataphores itself is face up. So you pass a unresed piece of ice with Chromataphores, would that trigger Persephone? I assume it has not to, since it would be like it has the subtype, but the subtype is not active since the card isn't resed. But
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
that's a rules question we never had to figure out with Egret.
Yeah, I think
I looked away for a second. What are we doing?
Okay, so
it wouldn't matter.
It doesn't matter in the case of Persephone, but the question is because Chromataphores is saying host ice gains barrier, code gate, and sentry. If the ice is unresed, does it still gain barrier, code gate, and sentry, or does it is that like a static thing that only becomes true when the ice is resed?
It matters for Cat's Cradle.
Okay, that's maybe a good one on how that works.
Let me go do some searching real quick.
I
would assume yes, but
I absolutely assume it's only until like when the card's face down, it wouldn't be considered a sentry for the sake of Persephone. If that resolves the way, you could do some wild things in Eternal with they cannot afford to rest this ice. We run over it over and over again.
The thing is,
but then I guess,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, but then I guess Persephone means it doesn't matter because there's no subs to resolve.
Yeah, I was wondering if if we have a hypothetical version of Cubon that was like every time you pass a code gate, gain 2 credits or something. Would that hypothetical card gain credits if you pass an unresed ice with a Chromataphores on it? But yeah, we'll now that we've stumped the rules
wizards, mull that over.
I mean, in general, face down things exist on a card, like an ability on the clickable mirror morph assets. If you de-res it and re-res it again, it still existed while it was face down because you can't use it again. So maybe Cat's Cradle Chromataphores is a combo.
I feel like it must be. But that actually might be covered by like the steps of paying res costs. Like you flip the card face up and then pay its costs. Might actually be how the rules engine works. Yeah, but I'm not sure.
I think it would also matter if you put Chromataphores onto an Evisk. Does it give itself a discount when you res it?
Ooh, other good questions.
Oh, that is a good question. That one's harder.
I will say. Oh no, Toron, I actually will say you're in the chat. You're like, oh, you have to break at least 1 sub to break all. No, actually, if an ice has no subroutines, you have considered to break all of the subroutines when you encounter it.
You can knife troll?
Yeah, you can knife a troll.
That's okay. I apologize.
No, it's all
that
good.
Also means that the first time you have an encounter with 0 sub ice, the Cyberdelia's fire.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. But it also actually, even more, to go back to Persephone for a second,
I had no idea.
you no sun. Yeah, you've broken all the Sentry subroutines on that unresed ice. Well, I guess you haven't broken all the subroutines on the unresed ice because the unresed ice act differently for that step. And yeah, you can hippo a Kojin and you can for control. You can do all sorts of funky stuff. Hippo and Kojin is a particularly cursed interaction that we won't bother to delve into here because
Yeah, I don't think it used to be like that. I think there was a rules update that changed that at some point.
Yeah, Hippo has. I'm glad it didn't come up this year at Worlds because the text on the card of Hippo and the NSG text to me read as doing very, very different things. But that's, fortunately that won't be that won't impact any major competitive events for the remainder of the of standard events, and we can deal with that in Eternal when it comes up. But
I think a general thought to go just back to the space card is like a great use for this is if you have like a amazing breaker that is so good you want to use it for everything.
yeah,
I think there's a few ways that can happen. Like you could have some like stealth breaker with Game Dragon, which is just like stupendously efficient. Like you got like that boosted after it measures the breaks 2/1, and it's like 7 strength. And then you just start putting Chromataphores on every single ice you don't want to deal with the rest of your rig. Or I think there's a world where you can use this with Spree to make one good icebreaker answer any run.
yeah, that card that I called Binder Fodder and then you took to Winning Worlds definitely starts to look good, much more decent with Chromataphores. Though I guess it kind of also did that with Egret, but again, the like 1 to res and more flexible to put down the board state matters quite a bit. Andre in chat is calling out Hyperbaric as another.
I think the other one we'll get to once we get to the other spoilers, though, is you can just get a humongous Rising Tide. You can throw 6 different fractors into your bin, and then play like Spree, Chromatophores, Rising Tide, and get into anything.
Yeah, that's quite something. Well, maybe we'll
Finally,
use that.
We have a use for Marjana.
Oh, that's true too. Maybe we'll use that though as a good transition to our next card. This is Principia. This is a 4-cost 1MU Shaper Program Icebreaker Fractor. This program costs 1 credit less to install for each other installed icebreaker. And then with the parenthetical reminder text, programs trash as part of installing this program don't count. Then it has interface 1 credit, break 1 barrier subroutine, 2 credits plus 2 strength, 2 base strength, and 1 influence out of Shaper. And I don't know if people can see this on the stream. In addition, the art has apples and some falling orbs, but it also has some Newtonian equations of motion that are difficult to make out, but are in the art, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love how the art is like a callback to like Newtonian physics, and like Principia is the name of the original like publication that Newton did to like publish calculus.
Yeah, it's a fun unified like little bit of esoteric. All right, esoteric math lore, I guess, but.
I like how it kind of fits the same weird like art theme also with like trick shot a bit. Like you're calculating exactly these trajectories, you know where things are landing. It's got that same feeling of like pool cues.
Yeah. Toron, any first thoughts on this card?
This card, in short, looks terrible. When I was thinking about this card earlier, I asked myself, would I be happy to install this if I already had my Unity and Echelon down?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no. For 2 more credits, I could just buy Pressure Spike, which has slightly worse base stat, but much better boost and a significant threat force ability. And we are already running a late game rig because we have Unity and Echelon, and we're going to install them first. So when does it become good? And the answer is probably at 0 credits. Because before that, it's just so hard to get down and have it be better than Pressure Spike. And having 3 installed icebreakers is a huge ask, and having 4 is absurd. And like we can just compare this to Rising Tide, which is so cheap. And for a small influence cost, we get to install it at any time. We get to boost more efficiently. And if we have to install it early, we save 3 credits. It's a very cool card in that we have this Shaper trifecta now between Echelon, Unity, and Principia, where each of them cares about installed icebreakers in a different way. It makes sense as a core set. Like, Shapers are not great at getting through barriers, but boy, I don't know what deck I would be playing this in, or what format I would be playing this in, where I couldn't find a way to spend 2 influence on Rising Tide, or not run any other barrier breaker out of Shaper.
I think I have an idea.
All right, hit us.
All right. I think this is something that is not actually supposed to be used as a breaker or a fractor. Because, of course, the barrier is usually the thing you need to break first to go challenge remotes. But this says, install last, please. I think this is something where you install this as an engine piece to sell back to Knick-Knack.
Yeah, that does feel like almost a softly intended combo with these, where it's like, okay, I have a couple of breakers down, then I can install Principia. It can be a breaker in a pinch, but it's more like it's more of a, oh, I will install this and then make some cash and draw some cards off of it. Which,
Yeah,
it's an interesting space.
Like, have them sitting there on standby, where for every spare MU, you install another one of these just to make Unity and Echelon stronger. And then when you're running out of MU, you start selling Knick-Knack when you need money. Like, I think there's a point sometimes where you just like keep installing them as a, like a permanent leech for your other breakers.
Yeah, because it's funny. It's like, getting Echelon, like 3 strength for Echelon's a big break point, but like 4 ends up being another important break point. And having Unity, it does look like Unity going to 5 strength is going to become more and more relevant. And
I think also, especially in like a gateway plus elevation core sort of meta, you could be running those 3 cards plus a set of Mayflies. And the intention being like, oh, early game, I'll just keep using the Mayflies as much as possible. And then use the Mayfly both to bring up the strength of Unity and Echelon, and to bring down the cost to install the Principias. And like, Mayflies are early answer with overclocks. And then you transition to this Doom Break, where these things are very efficient late game.
Yeah.
I'm pretty suspicious of selling this to Knick-Knack, because, well, that is a good idea on how to make it better. I compare it to the opportunity cost of like what we're running instead. Like, if we have three other icebreakers installed, we're making 3 credits and drawing a card off of Knick-Knack. Or we could play Muse and Coalescence, and our Coalescence gets to make 4 credits and draw a card, or Muse gets to make 4 credits and draw 2 cards. With Simulchip, even more. Like, what situation are we in where we can float so many slots to running a card which is only good with Knick-Knack and only good in the late game, and we're choosing to potentially cut the cards that are easily good with Knick-Knack? Like, we haven't seen quite everything yet, so it's possible that Knick-Knack is really desperate for fuel, but it looks to me that just Muse, Cole, and Simulchip is probably enough to make Knick-Knack good. And the situation where I draw 2 of my Principias in the early game and then have to install them for 4 and then sell them to Knick-Knack is just a crushing situation. It asks so much of you.
Yeah, I suspect using it as a knick-knack engine piece is probably like a core format only choice. You probably wouldn't do that. And like I think you'd be like, if you have Muse, if you have Coalescence, you have Symbol Ships, you probably don't need it. But if you're playing just like Elevation Gateway only, I think this becomes an engine that, in that tiny meta, is worth playing.
Yeah, and it is worth saying, like, the Aesop's engines were typically playing Muse Coalescence, but then also something like a Daily Cast or a Telework, just to have a few extra targets. And, like, you can't play either. Well, I guess you could still play Telework, but I think Telework works much worse with Knick-Knack than something like Principia. So maybe that could be a justification for the slots it's taking. Not it's taking away your DZMZ, your Muse and Coalescence slots, but it's taking away your Daily Cast / Telework slots. But I agree, it's a little bit suspicious.
Like the trade is that Principia is much, much better with Knick-Knack in exchange for being unplayable on turns 1 through 5. Whereas I'm always happy to install Telework.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do suspect if it does show up in standard deck, it's probably going to be like just to make Rising Tide good and not to actually play it as a fractor.
Yeah, I think this is something where you are intending this to be in your discard pile through the Knick-Knack engine because Rising Tide is the real end game, and hopefully you never have to actually use it. Also, let me know if my audio is awful. I had to switch to the phone because my ISP sabotages me.
No, you're all right. Yeah, I think that's probably, these are fair assessments of this card. So I think the other thing that like maybe could be interesting about this at some point is if we start seeing more 2-cost barriers. This starts looking a little more interesting because that would give it a better comparison point to both Pressure Spike and Propeller. But right now, most barriers are either 1 strength, 3 strength, or much more. And so this looks a little bit suspicious on that front.
I know this is in particular so sad to 3 strength barriers. I think they're going to show back up now that Cleaver's out of the meta.
Yeah.
I will note that this is potentially I think with the Knick-Knack engine, it gets a lot more exciting if there's a good way to recur this from the heap. Like the install discount works from the heap, and right now all we have is Simulchip, which like demolishes any value that could come from there. But if I was able to efficiently pull Principia back from the heap with a clone chip and then sell it to Knick-Knack, like that makes it really easy to run 3 clone chips and 1 Principia as a late game value option instead of a late game value plan. We don't have anything like that right now, but we have seen some Shaper cards, and there could definitely be a time in the future where Shapers are really excited about juicing their Principia for absurd value in the late game.
So that's actually work right now with Muse if you have 2 Muse free. You can play 2 credits from Muse and grab a Principia from the bin back onto the Muse.
This is true.
Yeah, and that can be, well, I guess that can be the same money as a Coalescence.
Exactly. It's not better than Coalescence, though, is the thing.
Yeah,
it's more money. It's more money. If I don't have any DZMZs installed and I have 3 Icebreakers installed, it's a little bit more. So
I think
it's not.
Coalescence is you spend 4, but you get 4 back, and
then you make 2.
And then you make 2, and then you make 2. And this is the same thing as like, you spend 2 less up front.
2. And then we make 4 and then 2.
But you don't get the 4 from the So the Coalescence is like immediate money while the Principia catches up once you sell it.
Yeah.
There might be some weird situations where it's like, one of them interacts with the fact that you played an Icebreaker or played a Fractor or something, but I can't think of anything that's good for the runner. It's always things like
I don't think this card, I don't think it's impossible for this to see play, but it's very close.
It does seem like it's a bit of a narrow window in standard at the very least. All right, should we move on to our next card?
Totally.
All right, this is Public Access Plaza. This is a 1-to-res asset. When your turn begins, gain 1 credit. Threat 2, when the runner trashes this asset while it is resed, give them 1 tag. It's 1 influence and 2 to trash. If I'm remembering my... Yep.
Yep.
And the flavor text: give me 5 minutes of a user's Access Plaza traffic, and I'll tell you where they're having lunch tomorrow. Give me another 10, and I'll have their BB's secret rendang recipe. Losminda Raya's Synapse Sales. I also want to shout out, this came from a blog called Lotus Eater, and I was very amused by how much they hated CTM and identified this card as CTM on a single card. So if you want a good read, I thought it was a very funny and well-toned, jovial card. So review. So it's, it was an interesting read for sure, and I definitely recommend people check it out. But yeah, I'm kind of curious, what people's thoughts are on this Pad Campaign Plus.
I think I'd start every Synapse deck with 3 of these, and never any other deck would play it. But
you don't think this can
yeah,
go
the obvious
in more than Synapse? You think this is pretty limited to Synapse only?
I feel like most other NBN asset decks, even if they care about tags, I'd probably rather Federal Fundraising and Balanced Coverage first, and then out of slots before this makes the top list.
Interesting. I wonder if Epiphany, to me, I'm almost any NBN asset ID. I feel like I kind of like this for just a nice consistent floor, and generating a tag feels like it's a pretty solid kind of just effect to have on an asset. Though I guess threat 2 is not a given for a lot of NBN asset game plans, so that might be tricky.
I think it's interesting that this is only 1 influence. So if you want to try to have a slot that's both this mini pad campaign and a little bit of tag threat, you're trying to make your Jinteki Dag deck work. Here's a few more tags.
I'm having a hard time evaluating this card just because it lands in a really weird place, in my opinion. It's really, really garbage in the early game. Installing this on turn 1 and then rezzing it on turn 2 is a disaster because the runner just trashes it for almost free, and this isn't giving us the forward momentum we need from our assets. And it's also really, really bad in the late game when the runner can just ignore it and let you gain 2-3 credits before the game ends. So it really depends on how long we can straddle that middle area. Can we get the runner to threat 2 on turn 3? Can we pull the length of the game out in such a way where it actually makes sense to install and res this on turn 12? And I don't know, I'm concerned that too often I'm going to draw this on turn 1 and be really sad.
I will say I do see one thing with this card that is a reason to play it. Is that it lets you res a card that the runner doesn't want to go trash. They'll probably leave it there. It's quite similar to tiered subscription of the res to trash cost, the benefit to trashing it isn't quite there. And I think that's particularly good if you're trying to build a mutually assured destruction combo deck.
Yeah, I think that's a
very
pretty
good shout. That makes it make sense in the late game. Makes it make a lot of sense in the late game.
Yeah, so I think that the place where I would play this also would be any sort of asset deck that's playing for mutually assured destruction. Of just you hold on to them to get to threat 2, and you just start building up a board that takes them so much tempo to take down and not worth it. But then it lets you eventually get to that 4, 10, 6, 8 face up things. And with Synapse, that's really powerful. Or with IP enforcement, that could be the game plan is you just start late game trading away a giant board for a whole pile of IP enforcement.
Yeah, it's also worth saying that it's been widely expected that we're going to see some sort of asset tech, something that makes it easier to trash cards, especially seeing how many asset spam tools we've seen so far. And we haven't actually seen any yet. And if none are printed or any that are printed are bad, then every asset gets much, much, much better. Like, part of the reason why like installing assets is risky is that your opponent drops Miss Bones on the table and trashes everything at no loss. And like they trashed all 3 of your public access portals. They lost almost nothing and have 6 credits left on Miss Bones. But in a world where they always lose 2 credits from the bank, it has a lot more potential, especially alongside all of the other asset spam tools we've seen.
I do like that in Snaps in particular, it's just so hard to take the board apart with the fact this will, like, when they clear the tag, you get to reinstall one more card. Just the tempo of how many clicks it takes to take this thing off and the thing they install with it is so much. So that's can be quite impactful.
Yeah, I think that is a very good shout. This is a great card for Snaps just because, yeah, that tag, like having those guaranteed tags that the runner feels like they have to clear, like, you know, it's like the runner has a hard time having a better pattern than click 1, run this, trashing it, taking a tag, click 2, clearing the tag, and then you get a very nice window to go and, you know, use that Synapse and present them with a new problem that maybe they can't handle with their 2 remaining clicks. So.
And another place that would be great for this in Eternal maybe is if you build like a sync deck, but then in Eternal you have all these other ways of backcasting tags. Like if you
also, I don't feel like 1 credit a turn is enough in Eternal.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you had other ways of like making it so that the clearing tags is more painful.
If it said threat 2, the runner can't trash this. I don't know if it's C5.
Yeah, it's funny
mutually
how
assured destruction comes back though. So like that's a very good shout on mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, I think it is funny how threat is almost not a mechanic in Eternal, but it's like a very interesting and compelling mechanic in Standard, which just speaks to how weird the Eternal format is at the moment. But yeah, you know, I think this is like this is one of those cards where it's like, oh, if I can always draw these on like turns 5 to 8, it's like the best. It's potentially one of the best cards I can draw in that window. But if I'm drawing that like too early or too late, it's gonna struggle, and I think that's a well identified like pinch point with the card. Cephalopod, any final thoughts on this card before we move on to the last card that was spoiled today?
I typed it in chat, but you know the cost to trash this isn't just the 2; it's the tag. So it really looks more like 4 credits an additional click. So
yeah, and
head campaign for 1 honestly seems fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is like, yeah, once it is at threat 2, it's just a better pad campaign, right? Because you resed it for 1 less, and it's going to actually cost the runner more to clear. So that's a not bad place to be. All right. Let's move on to our final card. This comes to us courtesy from the Indonesian Netrunner scene that also helped a lot with the setting and world building of this set. So big props to them. I think this set came out well, and I'm sure in no small part because of their contributions. This is Biawak, is a 14 cost, 6 strength, Ice Sentry Destroyer out of Wayland for 3 influence. And its text says, you can forfeit 1 agenda as you res this ice to pay for 10 credits of its res cost. It has 3 subroutines: trash when installed program or end the run, trash when installed resource or end the run, and then finally end the run. And the flavor text, damn it, Moth, where are you? This thing is way bigger than you Conrad.
Love the increasing lineup of Moth victims.
Yeah.
And that's like a Komodo dragon in the artwork, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, I think Biawak is the Indonesian name for a Komodo dragon, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah. I do like we kept balance on the corp versus runner side. Each side got a dragon. One's, a Komodo, one's a game dragon.
That's funny. Yeah. don't want to show favoritism to these dragons. Both sides can have them.
Yeah, like runners still have Keiko, so like the dragons, subtype once that becomes mechanically relevant will be a bit unbalanced when you route it back. But
Yeah. Yeah, we'll become Yu-Gi-Oh! Like these things reference the dragon in their name, and have
when
some
you res a
tribal
card
effect.
that has dragon, and you combine 3 of them to special summon the 3-eyed
Yeah.
black, white, red dragon.
Yeah, and it's a a code gate or it's a fractor decoder killer breaker or something, and also a mythic ice. That would be quite something. But to talk about the actual card, I saw a couple rules questions, so I'm going to fire them off at our rules wizard while we've got him here. So I guess the first one might be like, why is this worded this this way? This forfeit as you res to pay for 10 less. Like that's a bit. I feel like it's a unique wording for this kind of forfeit effect. So I'd love if you can give us a little peek behind the curtain as to how the rules team ended up with this text.
Totally new, spared no expense. So one thing is, when we make the comparison to Archer, that was as an additional cost, you have to forfeit an agenda. And this looks a lot like that, but there is a problem. We are giving you a choice between an additional cost of forfeiting an agenda or paying 10 credits. And the problem is op super heavy logistics. Because if you can say this is a 4 cost ice with plus 10 additional cost, op could just trash a 5 coster and now have this. So couldn't allow that. And then there were some discussions about, is it clear that if you're forfeiting an agenda to get this 10 credit discount or alternate payment, is it clear that you don't actually have to have 14 credits? Because there's also some cursed cost timing that we're not going to get into. Shoutouts to Lucy for making cost issues more visible. But having things trigger at a time that actually makes sense when we start drilling down into costs. Yes, thank you. That's the one. Is something where that ultimately led us to come up with this, where it's like, okay, as best as we can, we're doing this all at once. You are paying 4 credits and you're forfeiting an agenda, and this is about as atomic as we can manage it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I actually really appreciate that, because I think it's often easy to go like, why did they word it this way? I could word it this other way, and it's, I think, nice to hear the rationale behind it. The other question I've seen, and like this is not a stumper. This is just a almost more of a PSA. If the runner has no installed programs, but they do have an installed resource, as the corp, am I allowed to still choose to trash an installed program instead of ending the run?
You are allowed to do that, because even before no SIGs was abolished, it didn't govern you what you did with choices like this. So you could always pick something that didn't do anything, because no SIGs was a very consistent and intuitive rule. I'm sure we all agree. But yeah, if you need to do a no op on that first subroutine to get one of their resources, you can do that.
Cool. Well, thank you.
It is sad that we're losing like standoff now, because like this card always feels more worth it than Archer does for standoff. And I was like, something about the fact that this card is like has less subs, doesn't get you the money if they don't break all of it, but also you can't boomerang through it because there's actually 3 in the runs on it. It feels actually quite impactful.
Yeah, the comparison to Archer, I think, is really interesting. But Toron, I'll let you go.
One point on rules that I think that this wording makes clear that other wordings wouldn't is if you can pull it out with ob if you're also forfeiting an agenda. Like if I trash a 5 coster and I discount it by 10, can I pull this out with ob? And if it was worded, this has a 4 cost if you forfeit, then that's not super clear for ob, and this is more clear.
Yeah, that's also a very good point. Yeah, I think the like it's interesting because it's like in this day and age, I feel like the Archer's like trash and install program feel a little less relevant than it kind of did back in the heyday. Though, as I say that, like, you know, Archer Eminent Domain Ob was like one of the decks of the last, you know, couple months. Biawak having the ability to trash a program and a resource, you know, feels like a slightly better set of effects to have on your kind of impactful subroutines on this card. So even though it's trading down a subroutine, I feel like the power of those subroutines are going up, which seems pretty nice.
I also like that, you know, it is going to be a tempo hit, but it's not going to be like game ending. Like if 2 program trash subroutines fire against criminal, that's probably game ending. Whereas this was a little more fair as for it's going to be costly on tempo, but maybe you can work through losing 1 program.
That's a good
It's
point.
also worth shouting out that this is an optional cost. Most of the analysis I've seen is assuming that we're going to forfeit an agenda or pull it out with eminent domain. But that doesn't have to be the case. And I think that this could, see play in a Hyper Glacier deck as a one-of. Essentially built to last, where we're running only 5/3s. It's incredibly expensive, too expensive to be worth rezzing. But the threat that it could end the game or protect a winning clearinghouse is pretty relevant, seeing that for most of the previous meta, Archer was one of the few very taxing ice for every single deck. And Built to Last didn't get to play it. And Built to Last doesn't have many good sentries to play to force the runner to install their sentry breaker other than a Winchester on HQ. So putting one of these in your deck to threaten that, to force the runner to install their sentry breaker, to force them to consider having the ability to boost Echelon twice and then pay 3 more to break, is a lot of potential threat for having 1 card in your deck that doesn't do literally nothing. I don't know if it's enough. Probably isn't, but it's definitely something that I've been thinking a lot about, and whether if that pushes, like if it's just barely there, that without a 10 cost discount, if we can pay 14 to trash a program, trash a resource, and the run. And the answer is maybe. But it is an option that Archer did not offer.
Yeah, I think I was actually
super good when we print a 13 cost that we want to res, and we can get Bob to grab it for us.
I mean, I think we should print a 15 cost that we should res, and then get this one with Op.
I was just okay. I thought Curtain Wall was 15, but you're right. It's the same thing. So
We can extract our Janus though.
Oh, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. I was.
Well, obviously you Zato your Janus to land that core damage.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. Yeah, I was actually about to say, you know, this is we'll because Toron, you're here. We'll for a second. We'll go to Oversight AI and just mention that this gives Blue Sun an additional target of like a high strength ice, and this is probably better than Orion. I feel like for Blue Sun, even though it's 1 credit less, I feel like it's a much nastier.
It's definitely better than
second
Archer.
Target.
Yeah. I see Archer played sometimes out of Blue Sun with Oversight AI. No, not just because we play Oversight AI. Like we have no synergy with Blue Sun, and that won't be true at all of Biawak. Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah,
we'll play it with Orion, obviously.
Yeah, and in Blue Sun, you always can actually like use the discount. You know, you give a hostile away, and then you turn that into pure money by Blue Sun kind of laundering it back into the credit pool from the 10 discount.
Yeah, like we have. This may be a critical mass of 10+ cost ice for Blue Sun, because they're printed so rarely that like it's taken a decade to hit a critical mass. But between Curtain Wall, Biawak, Orion, the band one that I can't think of the name of.
The band one.
Tithonium.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, like just those few ice and nothing else. Kind of busted, kind of crazy. And yeah. Blue Sun could be a very, very big threat. Just because there's so much consistency in having nearly unbreakable end of runs.
Yeah.
And then a way of converting them all to money at the last moment when you have to kill people with some trace or with like a measured response.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's that'll be our little eternal sidebar. I think I'll be interested to see where this card goes, because it's like, I feel like as soon as you find a corp deck where you're like, oh, you know what, this 8 cost piece of ice wasn't doing quite enough for me. Can I get the 6 additional credits to make Biawak good? Like, I could see there being decks that say, hey, you know what? Putting one of these in, like, this card can win the game off of a fire, and that might be more interesting than some other ice I would run in this spot. So I wouldn't be entirely shocked if this ends up outside of faction at some point, in a way that like Archer never really did, outside of maybe a couple cheeky PE splashes.
Yeah, I see the references also to like Trust Op in the chat. I think that's actually a good call out. I think if there's a good Trust Op like Nuvum deck or something, before that deck would play Archer, and just play this card down as well. Like I love this Nuvum because you can be like, oh, I'll play my operation, throw big ice into the bin from Nuvum, and set it up so the Trust Op's good later. And Nuvum's pretty good at landing like Public Trail, for instance.
Yeah, or actually,
unfortunately. Never mind.
Okay. I will. Yeah, this is it's interesting. This was actually no, I don't think I can tell that story. Never mind. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what this card looks like. I think we now know almost all of the Wayland cards. There's like 2 cards that are
missing, are 2 agendas
that are presumably agendas. Just based on unless there's another asset that comes before Anthill in the alphabet, but that does probably suggest there's 2 agendas for Wayland. But otherwise, I think we'll have gotten everything from them. And so this looks like an interesting set for Wayland. I'm a little sad that we didn't get a border control reprint, but maybe we'll get.
I guess Ob is actually quite impacted by the fact that left. We didn't get anything back for it.
Yeah.
Ob gets to trash their Cyber Sands now, so
I don't know that that's good enough. I'm going to be on. Like,
it's not. But
everyone's like, oh, we can trash our Cyber Sands for humanoid resources. And I'm like, but what Ob wants to actually play humanoid resources? Like,
it's not that bad. Like we do humanoid and then we get spin. Like,
well, but not if we're trashing the Cyber Sand for it.
We trash Cyber Sand on the turn.
Yeah.
That's what you fetch with humanoid. You fetch an excavator.
I think the humanoid fetches Plutus and builds the Plutus server at the same time.
But man, one of the things to me with humanoid resources is like, if I'm not firing an event, I feel like I'm doing something a little bit wrong. And
definitely.
And I'm not playing enough events in Ob to ever fire that thing in humanoid resources. Like
that's why you play in a deck with Plutus and like a million transactions. You red level. Yeah, you use red level clearance to install your humanoid and pop at the same turn, get your Plutus, and then you've got a bunch of transactions to fire.
Yeah. This sounds very much like an Ob deck, and not at all like a Zwicky deck. But.
Well, you can't tutor for the Plutus off your humanoid in Zwicky.
That's fair.
The cool thing I think is this might be a rules thing though, but since the Plutus is an additional cost, I think Ob can fetch it and then choose not to pay it to finish resolving drawing cards with a humanoid, and then have more choices of what you want to trash when you res it later.
I think that
is true. You can
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I
there's
was
archer
thinking.
rulings where you can fetch an archer and just decline the additional cost.
Yeah, and almost like, oh, you'd be losing so much, but you'll be losing the 0 res cost here. So actually, just delaying that res till later is just free value in getting to see more card draw first.
This definitely isn't good enough to actually see play in Eternal, but what I was thinking of before was remote enforcement. I was very sad when I put together a remote enforcement deck and tried to res my splashed archer, and then had to forfeit my remote enforcement. Which is not true of Biawak. We can do remote enforcement Biawak in Eternal, and we will lose, but we'll have a good time doing it.
Yeah, you'll lose to almost any well-prepared runner deck that's ready to handle a piece of ice, but up until that,
But the value,
that value,
it's double off-world office. It's insane.
Cool. Well, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for the spoiler chat for today. I guess, because we're getting, we're at I think someone did the analysis, we're past halfway on the set of cards that are out. So maybe we will finish up with just having everyone say what card they're most excited to get to the table once, from what we've had spoiled so far, once Elevation, makes it out, hopefully by next week, which is such a soon amount of time.
So soon. You're gonna have a packed rest of daily casts.
Yes.
More than 3 cards.
Yeah. But maybe Alex, will start with you. What card are you excited to put in decks when
I think
Elevation
that
comes out?
the most excited thing I want to build and just bring to Pub Run for a while is a bad deck. It'll be so much fun. It'll just be Az with Knick-Knack and Red Team.
Okay.
I just want to sell my red teams back when they've got 3 left. I already installed a discount with Az.
Nice. That does sound like a fun a bad fun deck in all the right ways. So, how about you, Cephalopod? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying, it just feels so like you're cheating. You just get the $5 back from Red Team. You've had to do so much for it. It actually isn't good, even though you're doing something so fundamentally unfair.
I mean, I actually think Red Team might get splashed into Shaper more than Knick-Knack is splashed into Crim to run Red Team.
My guess is that Crim is going to actually prefer to splash the Knick-Knack in, because they have more good targets for high costs, high value, high one-time value cards, whereas the Shaper one-time value cards are Coalescence and Telework, but in Criminal you have Red Team and
Class Act. Selling a Class Act just is going to feel so good.
Yeah, especially when you draw into your next Class Act and you're like, oh good, I get a free Class Act, a free draw 4. Feels pretty good. Cephalopod Wizard, I have a guess as to what you're gonna say, but I'll ask you anyway. What card you're most excited to start building with in Elevation?
Well, the card you're thinking of might be 2 or 3 actually, but I have a combo king-making deck that really just lost the ID that it goes in for.
Ooh.
So it's an operation-based combo deck. I think it'll slide right into Nebula Talent Management. And then while we're kind of signing off here, I just want to have a quick message for everyone. If I were the secret shadow narrative director of NSG, I wouldn't tell anyone, but there would be signs.
Very good. All right. Toron, last but most certainly not least.
The card that I'm most excited to start, that we haven't seen yet, is the inevitable 1 or 0 cost Wayland Agenda. We've got 2 new forfeit cards, which is really cool. I'm a big fan of mid-range Wayland decks that try to res expensive ice really quickly and efficiently and then push agendas behind them. And what that looks like, whether it's more like hostile or standoff, is exciting and cool. So I'm excited to see what Wayland gets to be pushing behind.
All right, so you're making a called shot for a card that may or may not exist as the one you're most excited
Definitely
to play.
exists. 100% confident.
All right.
I am not affiliated with NSG. I don't know, but I am confident.
I like the confidence. All right. Well, thank you to all three of you for coming on. This has been a really wonderful chat. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We have another set of spoilers tomorrow from The Process, it looks like. They always put out a very good podcast. People should check out the Archivists podcast. That was a blast. The Low Seated blog was quite a bit of fun. Hope everyone's been enjoying Daily Cast so far, where we've got just a couple more days to go, and then Elevation will be in our hands. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thanks for having us.
Good night.
Thanks.